I'll move on. So yeah, transactional part under the Payment of Gratuity Act. Yes, the employers are supposed to submit notice of opening in Form A. Again, it is to be submitted within 30 days after the commencement of the operations. Even if a new branch is opened, I think in respect of that branch also, it is to be submitted. Then notice of change in Form B. In case if there is a change of the particulars mentioned in Form A, or any other relevant change, then again the change is to be notified to the authority concerned within 30 days again. Then in case of closure, right? So 60 days in advance from the intended date of closure, Form C is to be submitted to the authority concerned again in case of closure, right? And actual payment of gratuity, it should happen within 30 days from the date it becomes payable, irrespective of whether the individual has made an application or not, whether he has made a claim or not. This is to be done, right? And so necessarily in case of retirement, resignation and all, the employer has to work out the gratuity without waiting for anything from the individual employee. Then after working out the quantum of gratuity, then Form L is to be prepared, and that is to be submitted to the individual employee with a copy to the authority concerned, right? So that is another compliance activity. Then the notice of authorized person. So who is the person who is authorized to receive notices under the Payment of Gratuity Act in respect of the company? It is under Rule 4.1, right? So it is to be displayed, and of course it is to be, when we say display, it is one time only, but we have to ensure that the display is found in the notice board all the times, right? So one time, but containing compliance. Similarly, display of abstract in Form U, again one time, but it is also again similar to notice, it is also a continuing compliance. Then on the part of the employer, so these are all the obligations on the part of the employer, and on the part of the employees, they have to necessarily submit nomination. Again, they may not be aware, but the individual, the employer has to get the nomination signed by the employee. Normally, I think as per the Act, it is to be done within 30 days after the individual employee completes 1 year of service. That is what it is saying, but nothing wrong even if you get it at the time of recruitment, right? So that it is not getting missed out, right? And so subsequent to submission of nomination after the person joins the employment, subsequently if he gets married or if she gets married, so some change can happen. So then again fresh nomination is to be obtained. Again, it is the duty of the company or the employer to follow up and get the nomination fresh, because once the person acquires family, particularly in the form of due to marriage, then the earlier nomination would automatically become invalid, right? So it is better to follow up with the individual employees, get the information, so get the fresh nomination filed. That is to be done within 90 days. And in case if the individual employee wants to make some change in his nomination, right, then I think that should be initiated only by the individual employee. But after ascertaining from him and after getting a written request in a plain white paper, then as employer we can get fill it up in the relevant form, which is the Form H, and it is to be signed by the individual, and that will become the new nomination. So these are all the forms which are to be filled, particularly with respect to nomination. This is very important because see if the nomination is valid, then in case if the death happens to some employee, it is sufficient for the employer to make the gratuity payment to the nominee. Then subsequently it is for the nominee to share it with the legal heirs, right? But employer will not have any role in it. The employer will end with just making the payment of gratuity to the nominee. But only thing which is to be ensured by the employer is the nomination is a valid one. If it is invalid, then I think the liability will go to the employer only again. Assume that there is invalid nomination or there is no nomination at all. Then maybe the employer has to guide the bereaved family for getting the legal heirship certificate, and they have to check whether it is right or not. Then they may have to pay the amount to all the legal heirs. That is how it goes, process goes. So where the nomination helps is clearly in this situation. See, I think finally the employer will end up in running from pillar to post if there is no proper nomination, right? So that is a possibility, because today again people operating from remote place, it is high, right? So to follow up with those persons, getting the nomination at the right time, it is always better, right? Okay, then application for gratuity in form I, again it is to be submitted by the individual employee after termination of service, but again this is not mandatory. So irrespective of whether this person submits form I or not, the employer is bound to determine the gratuity quantum and make the payment to the employee.